When Clark County deputies killed Kevin Peterson Jr. in October, we heard one story.
Reportedly fired his weapon at the deputies.
Then protesters told another.
Enough is enough.
Now today, we're hearing one more. So the question is, which one is true? Also today, we honor our veterans, all veterans, including
I literally have to go out and panhandle sometimes.
the nearly 500 without homes in Multnomah County.
And I hate having to do that because it makes me feel so low.
They're a group that can usually find some solace, maybe with a parade or pancake breakfast, at least one day a year. Just not this year.
I don't know, it's pretty hard to be a lonely old vet out here.
And my conversation with a veteran who found relief and healing from a unique and controversial therapy that Oregon voters just approved, medical psilocybin.
Monumentally profound.
Here's the story.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. Hi, welcome to The Story. Thank you to all of our veterans on this Veterans Day. Now, we got a jam-packed show for you tonight. Lots of big topics to dig into. I know you're going to have a lot to say about it, so pull out your phone, get ready, tweet us using that hashtag HeyDan, and email The Story at kgw.com. Now, I want to begin tonight by talking about trust, okay? Because we are in the middle of this trust crisis, I think, between trusting the government, trusting the media, communities, trusting the police, even trusting our fellow Portlanders and fellow Americans. I mean, you've been on the internet, haven't you? The root, I think, of so much of our current divisiveness is this lack of trust. And we are seeing a tangible example of that in the way that people are reacting to the story of this man, Kevin Peterson Jr., a black man who Clark County Sheriff's deputies shot and killed on October 29th. Now, those facts there, no one's disputing those. But everything else surrounding this case, well, in that case, it kind of depends on who you ask. If you ask police, they're going to tell you that Peterson was a drug dealer with a long rap sheet who got caught in a sting operation, tried to run away, and pointed a gun at them. Now, if you ask the people who protested his death, they're going to tell you he's a family man, a proud father, a football player, a person who died too young at the age of 21. Even though, the correct answer is most likely he was all of those things, for better or worse. From day one, this has been a tragedy defined by which of those first two narratives you choose to support. And this is where the question of trust comes into play. See, because just last night, an independent investigation found that there was no evidence to suggest that Peterson actually fired at officers before they shot and killed him. Now, remember, we're not arguing the difference between pointing a gun at police and actually pulling the trigger. We're talking about narratives. And the one that started when the sheriff said this in the very first news conference after it happened.
The information I have is that upon entering the parking lot of the bank, the man reportedly fired his weapon at the deputies. The deputies returned fire and the subject was tragically killed. It is my understanding that the man's firearm was observed at the scene.
Now, even though Sheriff Atkins couched that claim there with that magic word, reportedly, the narrative that Peterson definitely shot at officers took off in the minds of many people. And it's a narrative that we now know isn't true. So what do we do in this choose-your-own narrative world we seem to be living in? Well, here on The Story, we're going to do the same thing that we've done since we launched this show, and that's stick to the facts. So here's Kristen Severance with the facts.
Thursday, October 29th, Kevin Peterson Jr. is shot and killed by Clark County deputies in Hazeldale, Washington. The 21-year-old had arranged to sell 50 Xanax pills to an informant at the Quality Inn in Hazeldale, according to investigators. Detectives tried to arrest him. He ran. They said he was armed with a Glock and alleged he fired at them. We will later learn that did not happen, but not before it's repeated several times. Friday, October 30th. Clark County Sheriff Chuck Atkins said Peterson was shot and killed and repeated the claim that Peterson fired at deputies, something investigators now say didn't happen.
Deputies from the Clark County Sheriff's Office were chasing a man with a firearm. The information I have is that upon entering the parking lot of the bank, the man reportedly fired his weapon at the deputies. The deputies returned fire and the subject was tragically killed.
He also cautioned to not spread misinformation.
There is always the potential for misinformation, doubt, and confusion, and there may be those who wish to sow seeds of doubt.
For the next week, investigators don't release any new information about the shooting. Friday, November 6th. A search warrant by Battleground Police Detective is filed in court, making it a public document. It again repeats the now false information that according to radio traffic and witness statements, Peterson fired twice at deputies. The warrant states that 2 rounds were missing from the gun. Then Tuesday, November 10th, investigators released a statement saying while Peterson pointed his gun at deputies who were chasing him, they have no evidence he fired it. The report states video from U.S. Bank showed Peterson fall, then sit up and point a handgun. Deputies stated Peterson was pointing his handgun at Deputy Brown at the time. Peterson was then shot and killed. It goes on to say investigators have no evidence Peterson fired his gun. The report states investigators conducted a round count from the Glock handgun and noted 1 round was chambered and 1 round was missing from the magazine. At this time, detectives do not have evidence that Peterson fired the handgun while in the U.S. Bank lot, based on involved deputy interviews. Additionally, no .40 caliber casings were discovered at the scene.
Okay, Kristen Severance joining us now. So, Kristen, where does this all go from here?
I mean, Dan, this is not over. This was new information released by investigators in Cowlitz County, but the investigation is not done. The big question that still remains, were deputies justified in this shooting? I also want to point out one more thing. I reached out to the Clark County Sheriff's Office about this new information, especially after the comments that were made the day after the shooting. They never got back to me.
Okay, Kristen, thank you.
You bet.
All right, now it's time for our big story tonight, and it's about honoring our veterans and the many who are really struggling right now. On a day that's meant to celebrate them, we should all be facing a very hard reality that hundreds of veterans are homeless in Multnomah County. Nationwide, that number grows to the tens of thousands. And amid a pandemic, a lot of them are lonelier now than they've ever been. Thankfully, though, work is underway to change that. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Wednesday morning, in the parking lot of a Northeast Portland motel, efforts to honor and thank our veterans are unfolding in true 2020 style. The parades and the pancake breakfasts can't happen this year. We all know why.
We're not just heartbroken.
Still, service providers are determined.
But we also had to really brainstorm about what can we do.
Determined to let our veterans know Portland has not forgotten them.
Just to know that they're cared for and that people appreciate the time that they spent in the service.
And that goes double.
Good morning.
For those grappling with homelessness, isolated in motel rooms.
And I see we got News Channel 8 here.
We do. KGW is here, and we are here to thank you for your service.
What you're watching is the pandemic version of an event that normally looks like this. It's called the Portland Veterans Stand Down. Hosted by the nonprofit Transition Projects, it's held every year on 9/11 at Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Last year, close to 500 vets, all homeless or on the brink of it, came. Haircuts, job info, addiction treatment, it's all covered here. Or at least it was, until the pandemic made this impossible too. But even in 2020, you don't give up on a mission.
Well, this pandemic wasn't going anywhere. So we started brainstorming how we could still provide these services in a safe way to the veterans that we're serving.
Staff took a couple extra months to draw up plans and gather donations. We were with volunteers a couple weeks ago as they packed up Army surplus bags. If the change of plans was very 2020, the space was very Portland. This is a coffee warehouse. Tucked into the bags, hygiene products, warm clothing, resource guides, enough for 200 local veterans in need, all to be handed out in person. That's key.
A lot of the clients that we work with, isolation has been a challenge for them for years, not just during the pandemic.
Fast forward to Wednesday, Veterans Day, Delivery Day.
Great.
We first met Stephen Wolford, a Navy vet whose disability checks can't cover rent.
I literally have to go out and panhandle sometimes, and I hate having to do that because it makes me feel so low, basically.
Wolford was living in his car until grants from the Department of Veterans Affairs paid for this room. All the while, he kept his well-worn Congressional Service Medal pinned to his hat. The thing that keeps him going? His 2 cats. That's Tabitha inspecting our camera.
It's been difficult. I mean, like I said, if I didn't have my cats here with me, I'd be going stir crazy. They keep me happy and give me something to love.
Next, we met Kurt Tucker, a proud Army veteran who hung that flag in the window before meeting us outside. Tucker was really open. He hates the loneliness.
Heck, there's just not many people to be friends with around here. And I don't know, there's not many places for veterans to go that I know of.
He had hoped Veterans Day would be a reprieve.
I called and called and called everything I could, and I couldn't find any. Because of COVID, there's no parades or no ceremonies up in the Happy Valley, or they're gone now.
Tucker added both his parents died this year. So did his support dog. He feels really isolated, and he knows he's not the only one.
I don't know, it's pretty hard to be a lonely old vet out here, but I'll get by. Something's keeping me here, you know, so I do what I do.
This is exactly why Transition Projects is working so hard to check in on local veterans. In a year as tough as 2020, it's never been more important to remind them how grateful we are.
Thank you very much for your service.
Oh, I'd do it again in a minute.
You would do it again?
Oh, yeah, in a minute.
Maggie Vespa, KGW News.
Veterans Day is celebrated every year on November 11th, but why today? How did we get here? We have to go way back to 1918 for the answer. World War I was just coming to an end, and the armistice with Germany went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, so 11 o'clock on November 11th. It didn't actually become an annual holiday until 1926 under President Calvin Coolidge and an act of Congress, calling for November 11th to be observed as, quote, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day. Then there was another World War, and in 1945, a veteran named Raymond Weeks from Alabama thought Armistice Day ought to celebrate all veterans, not just those who fought in World War I. Weeks led the first national celebration in 1947, until the day was officially renamed Veterans Day in 1954 at the urging of the U.S. veteran organizations. Now, as for why Veterans Day doesn't have an apostrophe before or after the S, the Department of Veterans Affairs says it's, quote, because it is not a day that belongs to veterans. It's a day for honoring all veterans. And honor them, we do. And that's how we got here.
And I want to take a moment and talk about one veteran in particular. His name is Chad Kuski. He served as a Navy SEAL for more than 18 years, did 12 deployments, and now he's medically retired because of PTSD. I wanted to talk to him because his story kind of ties really closely into something Oregon voters just passed last week, medical psilocybin. That's the active ingredient in so-called magic mushrooms. Now, Kuski told me that he stands by its use for therapy, but he told me a lot more than that.
Can you tell us how the PTSD manifested in you and who you are?
Basically, I lost my ability to connect with other people. I was there was always a background anger inside of me, frustration, depression. The biggest place where I noticed it, I think, was just a disinterest in life and everything. Nothing excited me anymore. I'd lost the joy of living, and I wasn't able to connect with other people. And not being able to connect with other people, I found myself isolated and trying to deal with the symptoms of all of that on my own in ways that were just keeping me stuck in that cycle of despair and, dealing with anxiety and depression and isolation.
Can you try to explain how it affected you, what it's like to take that type of treatment, and how you can kind of help me to understand why you were so changed by it?
Yes, that's a great question, and I will do my best to answer that. Going into it the first time, one of the main goals I had that I was hoping to get out of it was to remember what I used to feel like before. And that's a big, that before is kind of vague in general. Was it before war? Was it before the service? It could go back, a long ways, but I just knew that there was a before when I felt differently. And that's one thing that I definitively got out of that very first session was I came out of it remembering how I felt before all the, all the struggle, all the suffering and depression. And I felt just light. I felt like this huge weight had been lifted off of my shoulders.
Now, Kuski made clear that his experience is his own. He's speaking for himself here, but we're certainly glad that he was able to find the treatment that worked for him, and we wish him well in his recovery. And with that, we thank all of our veterans. I know many of you are at home right now thinking of the person or people in your life who has served this country. I'm thinking of my pop, who served in the Navy. From everyone here at The Story, thank you all.
When the story continues. A viewer wanted us to look around in the vault for an explosive story from 50 years ago on the Oregon coast. Well, we had a whale of a time trying to find it, but I'll try not to blubber through it tonight. And after weeks of requiring fire victims to pay a $2,000 tax, our reporting helps Lincoln County realize that tax isn't as required as they originally said it was.
Welcome back to The Story. I'm Dan Haggerty. Now, look, I love how many people write in. They write us all the time using the hashtag HeyDan every night, or they email us at thestory@kgw.com. Keep that coming. But to be perfectly honest with you, there are a lot of comments and questions and things like that that we just can't get to. And it's not necessarily because we don't have time, but we just don't have a response. And that was never more clear than when we got emails like these. Here's one from Kurt. Got anything on the exploding whale from 50 years ago? Or Linda, how about showing the explosion? I would love to see that again. I'm a little worried about you, Linda. So here's the thing. 50 years ago on Monday, ODOT blew up a whale in Florence, Oregon. And that's not a metaphor. That's not hyperbole. They literally stuffed a beach sperm whale with explosives and detonated it. And the video of the explosion has become kind of legendary. And I totally understand why you would want to see it again. But there's this one little tiny problem. See, KGW doesn't own the rights to that video. Our fellow Portland news station, K2, owns it, and they want to hold on to that. They don't want to share it. I don't blame them. I'll also never forget. But we have one thing that K2 does not, and that's a new segment called No Video, No Problem. One sec, it's right here. I'll just get it. That's the whale. That's the ocean. Now, the whale came up onto shore. It wasn't smiling because it was dead. But they didn't know what to do with it. So they thought, well, maybe we should just push it back into the water. But you can't do that because if you get like a bulldozer and you try to push something that big that's dead, it's just going to puncture the blubber and make a huge mess. Then they thought, well, maybe we'll just bury it down here in the sand. Well, you can't do that either because it's just going to smell to high heavens and it's going to attract all kind of animals and critters and stuff. So they figured, well, then the only obvious thing to do is blow it up. So they brought in a bunch of dynamite and they put dynamite around it. They put dynamite inside of it and they blew this thing up all over the place. It looked like something from a Michael Bay movie. Not only that, a bunch of people had showed up and they were standing nearby going, oh my gosh, what are they going to do with this whale? Can you believe they're going to blow it up? Which they then witnessed happen and got rained down upon with whale stuff and blubber and whale bones and all kind of gross stuff. And that's the story of when we blew up a whale. And that's no video, no problem. All right, let's get serious. Now, I don't know how many of you remember a recent story that we did out of Lincoln County. See, Kyla Boshi found out that the school district there is charging fire victims this big new construction tax to rebuild their burned down homes, something other districts have waived. But Lincoln County said it was mandatory there. But a few Call Kyle investigations later, and it turns out that it wasn't that mandatory. Here's Kyle.
Amid public pressure and complaints from wildfire survivors, the Lincoln County School District has reversed course on its position to tax fire victims looking to rebuild their homes. The school board is now considering a temporary construction tax waiver for those who lost everything in the Echo Mountain fire.
I feel this is the right thing to do for the community. It's not just the pressure of everybody telling me that that's what's the right thing. It is the right thing.
The proposal comes after a KGW investigation highlighted how hundreds of wildfire victims could be assessed construction excise taxes by their local school districts when they rebuild. John Skelton figured he'd have to pay a new construction tax of nearly $2,000 to replace his home in Otis.
Well, they're kicking you while you're down.
The Lincoln County School Board and district superintendent claimed their hands were tied because state law prevented them from offering a tax waiver to fire victims.
It really was not supposed to be.
But our investigation found the former state senator who helped write the law disagreed, and so did other school boards.
You know, it certainly can be done. Any district can waive it.
We showed how the North Santiam School District waived construction taxes for victims of the Beachy Creek fire.
This was copied from the North Santiam School District.
Lincoln County School Superintendent Karen Gray said she spoke with a lawyer from the Oregon School Board Association who found the law to be vague whether districts can provide exemptions. If approved, the tax waiver could provide much-needed help for fire victims like John Skelton and his neighbors as they try to rebuild their lives.
Without your help, I don't think we would be this far along. So we're very thankful to you.
The school board will vote on the proposal next month and hope to make it retroactive for any fire victims who've already paid. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
All right, I'm looking through some comments. Also, someone seems to think I have a twin on network TV. I'll let you be the judge. Send me some stuff. Use that hashtag HeyDan. Send me an email. We're going to read a few right after the break when we finish the story. Hey, let's get right to some of the comments here. I got this tweet from Damien. It says, "Hey, Dan, my wife thinks this guy..." What happened to my prompter thing? Yeah, this guy on The Bachelor is your brother. What say you? Well, yeah, I guess Kenny could be my much tanner twin. We are the same age, which I found depressing. His hair's a little taller. He has my dream job, which is boy band manager. I know this gig's not bad either, but if we do a side-by-side comparison, I guess I can see it a little bit. I look like a version of Kenny who sleeps less, has more kids, and applies a higher SPF. And while his tattoos look cool, I'm really second-guessing my I Heart Kristen tribal band around my calf. What do you think, though? Tell me what you think. Should we start using this as our logo? Will we get more viewers? Maybe. Would Kenny start going by Ken? Tune in next time to The Story with Danny Haggerty. I like that. It's kind of playful. All right, hey, let's talk about some comments here. Somebody asked Jay Corey, what happened to No Shave November? Is that still a thing? That's a thing, yeah. It's where people bring awareness to prostate cancer, and people should get checked for that and that sort of thing. I just can't grow facial hair, and if I do, I look ill. Also, how about this tweet from Devin Haskins? This isn't even to us, but I think I should read it. Talking about the Christmas tree at Pioneer Courthouse Square, it actually arrives tomorrow. It was supposed to come in on the 6th, but because of the protests and the riots that happened, bringing the tree to the square was held off. It was delivered yesterday and is being built now. The tree lighting will air on KGW the day after Thanksgiving. Devin Haskins, just throw a Hey Dan on that next time, and we're all good. And then, talking about the whale, we did the little drawing. We didn't need any video to tell you that amazing story. And we said that that happened on Monday. Well, it actually washed up on shore on Monday. Jim Ferretti let me know, said, dude, the anniversary is tomorrow, not Monday. He's right. The explosion happened 50 years ago tomorrow. So there you have it. That's the story for tonight. Hope we didn't disappoint you. If we did or didn't, check back tomorrow because we might. See you then.